It's FoosTalk Live.
You talking to me?
Compelling and lively banter.
Are you going to talk to us?
Talking foosball.
Foosball was how I measured my value as a man. You took that away.
Players and fans, promoters and pros. Unedited and raw.
Talk.
Living in the moment.
We have a lot of important things to talk about.
All while practicing social distancing.
Cool. We'll talk. No big whoop.
Let's get this thing started. FoosTalk Live. Coming to you from the studios of Foosball Radio and Inside FoosTV, brought to you in part by 518 Prints, one of the finest printers of promotional items, t-shirts, jackets, hoodies, and foosball apparel. Visit 518prints.com. FoosTalk Live is also brought to you in part by ProtectoFlex, makers of polycarbonate tubing designed to protect foosball table rods and to keep players safe. Visit foosball.com for more information about ProtectoFlex. Well, hey there, I'm Tom Robinson of Foosball Radio, and I'm so glad you can join us for another edition of FoosTalk Live. We come together for the love of our sports. There's no doubt about that. During these tough times, we love to talk about our obsession, don't we? There's no doubt I can't do this alone, so it's my great pleasure to welcome to FoosTalk Live yet again, one of the greatest foosball commentators of all time, all the way from Colorado, the great state of Colorado. Please welcome Jim Stevens.
Thank you, Tom. It's always nice to be mentioned among the greatest foosball commentators of all time. Thank you. Thank you, folks. Thank you. We have a live audience tonight.
Yeah.
That's tremendous.
Nothing like a little cheesy applause to welcome you to the show, right?
You know, I was thinking about it the other day. There actually are no live audiences anywhere in the world right now. There are no crowds. There's no people standing and cheering together anywhere in the world. Isn't that a strange thought?
Well, it's going to come to an end sometime. So we may as well be prepared for the live audiences, right?
That's for sure.
So, Jim, welcome. And, I got to say that this last week has been very interesting in the sense that I'm seeing a lot of creative things happening within our foosball community. People who are stuck inside, they're posting great memes and things that they're maybe doing at home. One of which I got to say, I got to hand you a big compliment here. It's called Foosball Funnies this last week. You and Clay Toomey put out a collection of bloopers in foosball. So could you just run past a little bit of how you guys put that together? What was the
sure.
process?
Now, and most of the credit, although not all, goes to Clay Toomey for knowing my complete collection better than anybody, as we've talked about. And his ability to go back through the history and pick out these little choice moments, whether it was something quirky that happened on the table, something funny that one of my colormen or me said, or just some odd circumstance that happened during a match that we were televising. And Clay went back and boy, did he put together a lot of clips. Of course, also included in that is the infamous commentator's curse, which I'm very conscious of now, Tom. I got to tell you.
Now, just to fill on those who haven't had a chance to see this yet, what is the commentator's curse exactly?
Well, it goes back to other sports, baseball, basketball, et cetera. It's like when a player steps to the free throw line and the commentator says, he's made his last 59 free throws in a row. And then he misses one, right? And we've seen this happen time and time again across different sports, including foosball. I'll compliment a player on his ball handling ability, and he'll quickly turn it over to the opponent or whatever. And it happens time and time again. And I've become very conscious of it. When I compliment a player, I'm thinking, oh, please execute here, before something happens. And I, again, have to go to the commentator's curse. But that's part of it. Also, some great one-liners from people like Mark Torres or Brad Anderson, who joined us last weekend, the week before.
Right.
And so there's just a lot of funny stuff. Foosball Funnies, it's the latest release at Inside FoosTV. Hopefully you folks can go over and enjoy that. Some of the other things going on at Inside FoosTV at the big channel, we've got an interview. I sat down with Tom Yore, and we'll get to Tom Yore in a minute as well.
Yes.
But I sat down with Tom Yore, the new Hall of Famer, and recorded an interview with him a couple of weeks ago that we'll be releasing in the next week. And then in 2 weeks, we're going to do another big video showcase. This one is going to be focused on the 2006 match at the World Cup in Germany between the USA and France. Now, we did that showcase, I guess it was 3 weeks ago now, that was focused on the Hall of Fame Classic, which would have taken place that weekend.
Right.
Our next one's going to focus on what I consider the greatest foosball match of all time. I call it foosball's finest moment. It was a Saturday night in Hamburg, Germany in 2006, in a match that was 4 hours in length, edited down to about 3.5.
Hmm.
That was just an incredible roller coaster ride of competition, and just an amazing show for all of us who were there, and everybody who was involved in the match certainly remembers it fondly, despite the fact that it didn't necessarily come out great for the Americans. So we'll have more information on
Huh.
that as we move forward at Inside Foods TV over the
Yeah.
next few weeks.
Definitely keep us up to date on that. I certainly want to see more about that. I mean, can you reveal who was in the match, or do you want to keep that a secret for now?
Well, it was USA versus France, and this was the
Okay.
first ever World Cup event in the history. There's been 10 of them. This was number one. It was held in a 400-year-old building along the banks of the river, the Elbe River, there in
The Elba.
Hamburg, the
Okay.
Elbe, and it was called the Fish Auctions Hall, and you could literally smell the fish. But it was sort of a cobblestone floor, and there was balconies and rafters and ghosts and everything in this place.
Really?
And the USA and France staged just an incredible match that by the end of it, there were about 12 to 1,500 people watching, going all the way up into the rafters in this about 8-story high building. Maybe it was 5 or 6 stories, but still very tall, and people looking down on the table, and the intensity and the rivalry between those two countries was something that really sent the sport in a new direction. That was the first
Right.
time we ever saw this multicultural, multi-table sort of approach to a team event of that magnitude, of a World Cup held in the same
Yeah.
year as a World Cup in soccer. And it really opened up the door to where we are now, which is a very international sport. The foosball family here in the USA has now become a foosball family worldwide. The
Hmm.
competition is there. The rock stars, the Americans, and the great European and international players are all, famous now for their exploits in this sort of format at the World Cup. And it was very much a game-changing moment in the history of the sport, and one that I certainly will never forget. I get chills even talking about it, and I think anyone who was there gets chills when they think back on that historic event. So that'll be 2 weeks from this weekend at Inside Foods TV. You'll have lots more information on that coming up. So trying to keep the content coming, Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. No, doing a fine job with that, and you've got so much material to draw from. So it seems like a never-ending well of fantastic entertainment in the sense of foosball. But wow, yeah, looking forward to that. So the other thing that I wanted to mention, something that I noticed out there. I don't know who's responsible. I think Dan Drexler, I think the name is, but he posted a picture. That I've seen a couple of times on Facebook of a foosball table that's perfectly designed for use during the coronavirus pandemic. And the rods look like they're about 10 feet long. And it keeps
Yeah.
the players apart by at least 8 feet, something like that. I don't know if anybody's seen that, but I'm waiting for the manufacturer to step up and really make us a table like that. I think it would be an interesting challenge.
We
Uh,
may be headed in that direction. And also, I noticed in that picture that there was a fence, a small white picket fence, dividing
yes.
the two teams as well. Stay on your property. We'll play with the neighbors, but at a distance, of course. And
Well,
and who knows? We're going to have to make some adjustments moving forward, and that very well could be one of them. So keep that
and
in mind.
design engineering.
Tornado and Warrior and Bongini and
Yes.
everybody else. Yeah.
It's what it comes down to. So before I forget, got to make sure that we do our usual tradition here. It's become a tradition here on
Yeah.
FoosTalk Live. By the way, if this is the first episode you're listening to, what Jim and I like to do right about this time is to reveal our favorite IPA for a Friday evening. IPA being a beer, by the way.
Mhm.
So Jim, you start. What kind of IPA did you choose for this week's show?
Well, for this week's show, I chose a Colorado beer out of the
Okay.
Odell Brewery in Fort Collins. It's a double IPA called the Mercenary, Myrcenary. Mercenary. It's 9.3 alcohol, so it's pretty hearty.
Ooh. Ooh.
So things could get interesting here in about 15 minutes or so. But it's very, very tasty. I'm a big fan of the double IPA, and I'm an IPA
Yes.
drinker. I like IPAs. You can't drink too many double IPAs, or you're going to be in trouble. Uh,
Understood.
but but having one on a Friday night, spending time with some friends, I'm
Yeah.
enjoying a Mercenary tonight. How about you?
Well, this kind of reveals my hippie background. Actually, I chose something called Elysian Space Dust, which not surprisingly comes from Seattle, Washington.
Elysian, yeah.
Elysian Space Dust, and it's got a picture of a hops on the front, a hops with eyes and a mouth, and spewing space dust. So
Oh, I like it. I like
I got to
that.
try this. I've never had it before, so
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
like experimenting and see who's got what. But there we
Well, of
go.
course.
Got
There it
got
is.
the lid off. Let's see what happens here.
That was not a sound effect there, by the way, folks. That was a real beer opening.
Live. Ooh. Oh yes. I'm thumbs up for Elise and Space Dust. This is good. Very nice.
Yeah, my good friend Brad Lorene listening out there is a fan of Space Dust, a Pacific Northwest beer that I've enjoyed several times when visiting the Pacific Northwest, and it's a very good one.
Yeah, well, Brad, I guess I got lucky there. I just love the label. That's oftentimes it draws you in, right? You see the label and kind of go, yeah, I haven't seen that label before. Let's give that a try. But yeah, there you go. Lisi and Space Dust. It's kind of like back in the day when. Do you remember vinyl albums? By the way.
Well, of course I do.
Oh, okay. Yeah, when you go into a record shop and you'd be thumbing through the vinyl albums, it was the album cover that got your attention
That's right.
oftentimes, especially if you didn't know exactly who the artist might be. But yeah, I mean, I
Yeah, and
think
we
the
see that
same
a
thing.
lot on the craft breweries. You're right. We do see the
Yeah.
great artwork.
Yep, absolutely. So we want to make sure that if you're going to join us live. By the way, we are going to be taking your phone calls as we go through FoosTalk Live. Otherwise, that wouldn't be Foos Talk, would it be?
No, would not be. And we've got a very special guest tonight. And of course, we've been promoting it all week. We're going to be joined by the guy I call the world's head official, the chairman of the ITSF Rules Commission, the man who wrote the modern rule book, Mr. Tom Yore himself.
Wow, Tom Yore. Now there's a name that everybody knows. That's fantastic. Well, I have a feeling because I noticed that this last week when we mentioned Tom Yore's name, who's going to be on this episode, a lot of people started talking about rules suddenly. And so I think this will be fascinating, to say the least. One of the people that's been trying to teach me the rules along the way in the 518 Foosball squad in upstate New York is also a co-host of Foosball Radio. His name is Chuck Dooley. And I want to bring Chuck in here because Chuck, I know, has been, trying to entertain himself with the foosball thing of late because everybody else is cooped up in the house. Chuck, welcome back to Foos Talk Live. How are you?
I'm doing good, Tom. How are you? Jim, how you doing?
Chuck, good to hear your voice. Doing well, thank you.
So, Chuck, what's going on, man? What have you been digging around to see what's happening in the foosball world? Anything you'd like to raise before we get into to talk to Tom Yore tonight?
Well, I don't have much going on in the foosball world because there's not much going on in the foosball world, Tom.
Yes, true that.
But I do have a rule question for Tom when he comes in.
Okay.
But nothing now.
All right. Well, Chuck, are you sampling a beverage this evening?
Just a seltzer, Tom. Nothing as good as you guys.
Seltzer. Okay. Well, I happen to know that you like Corona Light, but
I do, yes.
Some of the
I'm
best
sure I'll
commercials
get to
ever.
that.
Corona commercials are some of the best commercials ever, are they not? A guy sitting on the beach with a Corona there. I mean, what could be better? Don't love
right.
the beer necessarily, but love the commercials.
Yeah, no, it's funny how things change for them. I know the company saw a drop in sales because of coronavirus, which
Oh,
are
of
complete.
course.
There's no association whatsoever. But it's like, wait a second, that's interesting. But Chuck, as long as you're still out there, I know that the corona will continue to survive. There's no doubt.
Yeah, I was reading that, Tom. They're down like 25-30% in sales because people think they're getting the virus from the beer.
No kidding. No kidding. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well, to say we live in strange times is an understatement in that regard. So this is Foos Talk Live, and this particular segment of Foos Talk Live is being brought to you today by 518 Prince out of Del Mar, New York. Now, 518 Prince, just to give you a quick idea, you probably know the name Jesse Brust. He's a foosball player. He's done some touring in his day. Jesse Brust and his wife Mel have been running 518 Prince for a decade and a half at least so far, and they're known for their amazing printing capabilities when it comes to apparel, promotional items of all kinds, and especially foosball gear. I can attest to the fact that I have at least 5 or 6 of their shirts in my foosball t-shirt drawer, but that 518 Prints are currently, of course, like everyone else, reduced in their staff. Now they normally employ 20 people in Delmar, New York, but they are available still for you to discuss design ideas. And Jesse and Mel encourage you to visit their website, 518 Prints, and give them a shout. And all they need is a good design, and they'll do the rest and put it on whatever you'd like. A hoodie, a T-shirt, a jacket, whatever it might be, especially if it happens to be foosball. I know that 518 Prince does a lot of rock and roll touring bands, so that part of their business right now is not active because nobody's touring. But in the meantime, try out 518prince.com for foosball apparel. I think you'll dig it.
Yeah, I've seen their work at the World Championships on a couple of occasions and was very impressed. In fact, I'm considering heading over there to see what they can do for Inside Foos TV as well.
Yes,
They do some
absolutely.
outstanding work, and it's not the norm. It's usually something pretty cool, something with a great look to it, great colors, etc. So glad to hear they're going strong up there.
Yes, absolutely. And Jesse, of course, is a great friend of everybody in the foosball world, and he's waiting, by the way, to get back in this next year. So I will be hearing more of that from Jesse very, very soon. So in the meantime, tonight's topic is all about the rules in foosball, and we have a very special guest. So Jim, I believe that our guest is waiting. He's ready to go. So let's welcome our guest, Jim.
This guy, of course, Hall of Fame player, voted in this year. A great, outstanding forward, great singles player. A great friend of mine. Tom and I have traveled around the world, spent a lot of time together at tournaments and doing other things in between tournaments. But perhaps internationally, he's best known as the chairman of the Rules Commission, the man who was, I think, for the most part, responsible in the writing of the first international rule book. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But first of all, let's welcome the man himself, Tom Yore.
Gotta love the sound effects.
Tom, are you with us?
It says he's connected.
Well, while we wait for that, I'd like to remind you that you are listening to FoosTalk Live here at Podbean, Foosball Radio. And Tom will be joining us soon. It does appear that he is connected. It could have something to do with his headset. I don't know.
Perhaps, yep, it could very well be
the
that
mute button, perhaps.
Yeah, he could have the mute button pressed. It is a technical challenge sometimes when it comes to joining us on FoosTalk Live, and we're always working on these issues. But we will get to Tom in just a few seconds here. So, FoosTalk Live, by the way, this happens to be our third episode. It's a grand experiment because of the fact that we're all kind of stranded indoors. There's no competition going on right now. People are coming up with creative ideas as to how to deal with being stuck inside. And FoosTalk Live is one of those ideas that kind of came out of that situation we all find ourselves in. And we are taking calls, by the way. And if you've got questions for Tom Yore, once we get him up and running, we'd certainly love to hear your questions for Tom Yore when it comes to the rules, because he is the person who wrote the rule book, so to speak, when it comes to foosball in general. Not an easy task, to say the least. Wondering if Tom is with us yet.
It takes a certain kind of person to become an official. It's not something I ever wanted to do. I always felt it sort of interfered with my competitive approach on the table. But each week we are going to try to have a guest for you here at FoosTalk Live. And last week, of course, we had Don Shalifou. It took him about 25 minutes to get on, but once he did, he was sensational. What a great interview. What a great storyteller Don Shalifou is. So with Tom, we're going to wait for him a little bit longer. We were going to talk a little bit about perhaps when the American Pro Tour might resume.
Right.
And of course, we don't have enough information to give you a whole lot of insight into that particular topic, although I did see Mary Moore is continuing to push the national championships at the end of June, and I would think that's about the earliest we might get going again. I'm committed to work events in July in South Florida, the Bardo Hearn at the end of July, and then the Battle in the Mountains hosted by Alan Reese the first weekend of August. So 3 straight weekends, I'm Inside FoosTV are going to be at those events if they happen.
Yes.
Let's hope that does happen, John.
just going to have to wait and see at this stage. There's so much unknown that we just really don't know, what's coming next and when it might be coming.
So,
Now, I don't know what Tom's problem is, but I do know that when I had it loaded on my phone the first time when we did it, Tom, I couldn't talk through the phone normally. I had to put the headset in and use that. So I don't know if maybe he tries that. It would help out.
with a headset, yes. Yep, that they do recommend that. As fact, if you're trying to call in with Foosball, with FoosTalk Live, it's always a good idea to have a headset plugged in. That way, there's less feedback, and also, I believe it does make it easier for you to get connected. And in the meantime, we'll get to him in just a moment. So, Jim, I was thinking that in the interim here, we can certainly discuss some rules on our own until maybe Tom can join us, but because I'm a beginner or a novice when it comes to foosball, I'm wondering when it comes to, let's say, being the forward and you're serving the ball. I'm wondering, what is it about the fact that you can't advance the ball forward before you touch a couple of guys? How did that come about? Do you know?
Well, it's there's been several rules over the years, and we'll hopefully talk more with Tom about this. Initially, of course, you would serve the ball through the hole, and you could direct it to your 5 row
Okay.
each and every time. But the ITSF, many of the ITSF tables, the international tables, did not have serving holes. Traditionally, in European table soccer, oftentimes they would simply throw that ball into the midfield, and then fight after it, and whoever came up with it came up with it. And in some cases, they would just put it into play by setting it midfield, much like a soccer game. So
Right.
initially, when the rules were written, when the new rule book was created, and again, we're hoping to talk to Tom more about that, they had to find one way that would appeal to all of the different cultures, all of the different table styles, and that's what they came up with, was the ready protocol. Initially, you had to touch 2 men and stop the ball, and then 5 or 6, maybe 7 or 8 years ago now, they went to the 3 man. You don't have to stop it, but it has to touch 3 men before it can advance. It looks like Tom has hung up and then come back in. Should we check and see if we can get him?
Yes. Tom, are you with us?
I hear crickets.
Not looking good.
Well, I think
He is
that
getting a lot of compliments in the chat, though.
yes, absolutely. So, in fact, if someone would like to call in and would have a question they'd like to throw out there right now, we'll certainly take your call. By all means, contact us at FoosTalk Live, and again through this Podbean application. Now, Tom says that he can hear us. So as far as hearing him, that's the other problem. So, Tom, you can hear me. Do you have your mute button turned off?
It says unmuted, he says.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Not hearing anything. Okay.
No. We'll maybe try it again, and we'll have to maybe figure out what's going on. Maybe remove the headset and try it without the headset, Tom. And hopefully we can get you one way or the other.
We'll make this work. Absolutely. This is what live broadcasting is all about. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, and you kind of have to go with the flow.
Do we have any other callers that might want to join us?
Yeah, we absolutely want to invite anybody who wants to jump in. So we'll see if we can. Go ahead.
I got a rule
Chuck.
question, Tom. I mean, we can start talking about this without Tom being here. He can chime in when he does connect. One of my pet peeves in the foosball rule book has always been the adjustment. Now, I understand rules are made to counteract, what people are doing. People do it bouncing the ball off the wall on the 5 bar 500 times so they could do a wall, brush down pass. That
Right.
was changed so that it was only 2 walls. Well, the adjustment, I just don't understand it because I don't see what it is protecting us from. As far as I've seen, there's no real advantage to it. And if it does happen, I'm going to say 90% of the time, it's not something that particular person that was called on it could do again if they wanted to.
Right.
It's just it's a rule I just never understood. And
Yeah, to clarify, what Chuck is talking about is when you touch the top of the ball or the back of the ball with the face of your man and then immediately pass it. I suppose there could be an advantage, a small one, if you get that ball moving slow enough. But I think a lot of these rules were implemented fairly early on in response to stopped ball passes, et cetera. I'd love to get Tom's perspective on that. He has just tried calling in again. At some point, we are going to hear Tom's voice. I would have to think maybe we could even try to come up with a backup plan here. I may be able to do that. And so, Tom, are you with us?
he's connected, Jim, but just for some reason we can't hear him.
No, maybe he needs to turn off his Bluetooth.
I did that.
Oh, there he is. Hello,
There
Tom.
he is.
There we go.
Yeah. I did it all. I was checking the mute, the unmute, switch from Bluetooth to hardwired, and now all of a sudden, boom, it works. Hello,
Okay,
everybody.
Tom. Great
How
to
you
hear
doing,
from
Tom?
you, Tom.
Good, good.
You got in about 15 minutes faster than Don Shalafu did last week. So
Yes.
All right.
you hold the record, which could be broken next week, we hope.
Yeah, next time, let's do a test run.
Yes,
And
indeed.
officially, I'd like to welcome the chairman of the ITSF Rules Commission, Mr. Tom Yore. We're talking rules tonight. Tom, welcome to FoosTalk Live.
Thanks, Jim. As I said earlier that no one heard, great to be here. Appreciate it. Great job, as always, Tom Robinson. Nice to meet you. I've been listening to your broadcast, and you do an excellent job, and pretty awesome collaboration here. I'm glad you and Jim are teaming up for this Friday night deal during this whole coronavirus crisis. We're all kind of locked down, but it's cool that we're all getting together and
Yes.
being able to chat some foosball here.
A pleasure to make your acquaintance, by the way, and thanks for the compliments. It's hard to know sometimes if it's getting through, but yeah, that's good to know. Thank you so much, and thank you for being here on FoosTalk Live.
Oh yeah, happy to be here.
And Tom, I know you are, you're of course, as we all are, sitting at home, but you've got a pretty good practice partner, don't you? Someone who keeps you on your toes.
I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing. It kind of affects your confidence a little bit, not being able to win anymore. I can win against stationary guys in rod locks. A little more difficult these days.
Of course, we're talking about his son Tommy, who has become one of the great players in the world over the last couple of years, and that's got to be a lot of fun playing pickup, well, or not playing pickup games.
No, it's
Tommy
fun,
Yore.
yeah, for sure. He's obviously he's a real talented player and getting more and more difficult to beat. And he's just right now he's a sponge, just soaking up everything he can and learning the game. He's picking everybody's brain and just figuring things out. So yeah, he's on an upward trajectory for sure. Almost sounded like I tried to say surreptitiously, but I would have nailed that one for sure. I've been practicing.
Foosball funnies, folks, go watch it at Inside FoosTV. Surreptitiously does make an appearance with Mr. Yore.
Oh, I knew it would.
That was a fun
Good job,
evening.
Clay. That's what 4 IPAs will do for you.
Was it only 4? Yeah.
Well, it's
It might
probably
have been
more, I don't know.
doubles. They
What is
might
your
have been
IPA of
doubles.
choice tonight, by the way, Tom?
When I get to one, it'll be a choice between. My go-to is normally the Lagunitas IPA.
Yep.
And I just discovered, Jim won't appreciate it too much, but it's Boston Brewing Company. It's the New England IPA. It's from the folks who make Sam Adams, which is one of my all-time go-tos is the Sam Adams. Can't go wrong there. But
Yes.
as far as an IPA, they've come out with a new one. I don't know how new it is, but the Boston was a New England IPA. It's actually pretty good. So I've kind of been liking it. I mean, they are one of the
big brewery. It's pretty good.
They're actually one of the top 4 craft breweries in the Yeah, you may not have known that.
Well, they are because
actually,
they're
that
everywhere.
is something we're aware of. But yeah, I mean, it's the Boston Lager folks. I mean, the Sam Adams guys. They come out with some great recipe beers during the different seasons. The autumn version is fantastic.
So yeah, I'm right now currently drinking a vodka tonic, just trying to kill the coronavirus, and that, and just washing my hands with Grey Goose.
Sterilizing your mouth, I see.
Yeah,
Chuck's drinking a Corona, thinking that Corona cures the coronavirus. So
Yes,
he's having plenty of them.
I like it.
So we're here.
Yeah, I'm doing heavy doses, Jim.
Yeah, good job, Chuck. We're here to talk rules with you folks. So go ahead and get in the queue. Give us a call. You can talk to Tom Yore directly about any potential rule changes, about it, maybe the oddest things he has seen in a match as an official. Tom, I did want to ask you one thing, and it's something you and I talked about a little bit when I did the interview with you a few weeks ago. And that full interview with Tom Yore will be at the channel here in the next week or so. But we talked about how the original international rule book was written. And it was difficult, wasn't it? You had all these different table styles, these different cultures, these different histories, all coming together, and you had to turn this into one rule book that appealed and appeased all the different table manufacturers and styles.
Yeah, well, it wasn't so much the manufacturers; it was the player bases. It was quite an experience, actually. It was Larry Davis at the time was the head of the USTSA, and he asked me if I'd be interested in going to St. Vincent, Italy, in the Italian Alps to join a group, working group during their what do they call it? Their World Congress for the ITSF, which I've never heard of at that point. And this is, I think, 2005, and they wanted to have me go there and talk rules and I didn't know what to expect, but I'm like, Italian Alps, Italy, okay, yeah, I'm in. They paid for the trip. ITSF did, so okay, no problem. So I'm in the room with Wolfgang Resler and I forget his name, from France, from Germany. We had representatives from pretty much all the player bases. So there was probably 6 or 7 of us at a round table, and Klaus Gautersleben was kind of heading it up for a period of time. So we're going around, and the Austrians have their little one-page rule book. The French have a 20-page rule book. There was a few other rule books. I had the Tornado rule book, the USTSA rule book, and so we're going through. Everybody's got their input. It was kind of weird because, like, the French, they wanted a 6-second time limit on all rods. They wanted, because everything's pinned. There's no set shots, from a stop, unpinned position for the most part. So they didn't care whether, their balls that aren't round don't sit still. They didn't care. But then the Austrians, some of them like to shoot pull shots and push kicks and things from a set position. But the Garlando ball, would never stop. So they wanted 20 seconds. So I'm trying to manage this 20-second versus 6-second situation. And basically, there was a lot of discussion about various rules. That was just one of them. But long story short, I was kind of, mitigating and mediating between all the different factions and kind of, just, trying to make sense of everything and kind of guiding the process. And eventually, Klaus just left. He's like, Tom's got this under control, and he just left. And, we hammered out a rule book, obviously, predominantly based on the Tornado rule book, because it was, one in English, and, nobody knew what the French one said, but, ours made the most sense at the time, and it's the one that we were able to work through, and being someone very knowledgeable about that rule book, it kind of put me in a stronger position. But at the end of that tournament, I guess Klaus reported back to Farid about how things went down, and at the end of the tournament, he came and approached me in 2005 and said, "Hey, would you like to be the president of the International Rules Commission?" I'm like, "There's one? Is that a thing?" "Yeah, sure. Sign me up." And been in that position ever since. We, had some revisions to the rule book, over the years, and then with the help of Dave Zeman from England, the guy's just a genius. We reached out to a lot of players back in, I don't know, it was probably 2016 or so, 2017 maybe, asking for anybody who wants to be on any commissions. Well, he reached out and said, yeah, he'd be interested in working with the rules. So, he and I got together, started talking about things. He came up with this idea of restructuring the entire rule book, and I was hearing him out. And I tell you, I really like the structure, having this. I don't know how many people have seen the new rule book. It's been out for a few years now, but, just going through the whole structure with, a definition section and a rules section and a penalty section, and everything broken down. It's so much easier to follow and understand, and it's so more descriptive. I'm really proud of the work that we did. We worked a year and a half plus to put this thing together, and I have to give him much of the credit. I mean, we both collaborated over the whole couple of years or year and a half that we worked on it. But yeah, I'm really happy with this product that we ended up putting out.
We're speaking with the ITSF commissioner of the Rules Commission, the president of the Rules Commission, Tom Yore. Tom, you had a question?
Yeah, I'm just Tom. I'm curious now that this is more or less set, a permanent rule book. What kind of flexibility is there? Now, let's say somebody has a specific rule they'd like instituted or something changed about the current rules. What's the process? What do people typically have to do if, let's say, they want to plead their case? What would they do?
That's a great question. So everybody has input, but one of the main things is there needs to be a problem that's being fixed. People have their preferences for this, that, or whatever, but for us, there needs to be a reason. Why are we doing this? What's the vision? Why do we need to make a rule change? So something has to be there that, okay, we want to speed up the game for TV matches or televised matches. We want to speed up the game. Okay, well, we can deal with that. We can shorten timeouts. We can shorten time of possession. There's a lot of things we can do, but that right now is not something that's pressing. We're not being pushed into that. If there's years ago there was the issue of what was known at the time as the Colorado Clear. So players were using for those who don't know, the Colorado Clear is back in the day when the ball went off the table, it was awarded to the goalie or actually it was the forward of the team who it was last scored on. So the five-rod of the team that was last scored on. So the goalie would hammer the ball off the table as hard as you can. The ramps were such that it was harder to bank, but if you tried to hard bank, it would fly off the table. So there was a situation where smart teams, when they knew it was their serve, they would hammer the ball as hard as they could, and it would go to their forward's 5 bar. So they're advancing the ball. So that was obviously a defect in the game. So that was something that there was a proposal and wound up changing the rule. So there's been things like that. There's been other rules where I like to call it the Moreland rule or the jar set, where the rules allow for basically a free reset. So players would utilize that free reset on the 5 bar where someone's late in a game, close game, and they're about to make a pass, and you intentionally reset them on the 5 bar to make them miss the pass. Well, the penalty to you is only a reset. So there's no, and meanwhile, you dropped your pass, and maybe the opponent gets the possession. So now we instituted a new rule because of that, where if the ref calls reset and that reset actually causes a player to lose the ball or misexecute a pass, and the ball goes back to that player's 5 bar, so they get a second chance. Or if they, it could turn into a jar where they get it on 3 bar, but that's at the ref's discretion. But so those are examples where the rules change process is when there's a defect in the rules that's discovered, or somebody calls it to our attention, and then we act accordingly if we think that change needs to be made.
Got it. Now, is there a form that you have to fill out, or a petition that you have to file?
No, you just email us. Off the ITSF website, there's an email to get to us, and you just send an email with a proposal, and we get a lot of them actually. We receive them and we discuss them and we respond whether we're going to take action or not. Sometimes we actually have a backlog of rules change proposals that we discuss, and I imagine there's been a push for certain rule changes based on various things going on, but we've got a backlog of rules change proposals that we're dealing with now, and whether they come out this year or not, we'll see. But I imagine there will probably be a few rule changes coming, to start the next season. Nothing serious though.
Now we just recently saw the addition to the rule book allowing the aerial shot back into the fold. How long had it been since it had been banned?
The aerial's been banned for quite a while. I want to say going back to probably, I want to say maybe even during the 2005, 2006 original ITSF rule book, and perhaps maybe sometime thereafter. But right now, as far as I know, it's not an ITSF rule, it's an IFP rule that's allowing something, as I understand it anyways, it's allowed in IFP tournaments, but it's not permitted in ITSF tournaments. So it's kind of it's an IFP thing where they're allowing it.
Interesting. Are you considering adopting it?
No, not at all.
Hey, listen, we have a caller who wants to ask you a question. It's Brandon is on the line. Brandon, can you hear us? And welcome to FoosTalk Live.
Brandon Munoz?
Hi, how's it going?
Hey, Brandon, what's up, buddy?
Hey, long-time listener, first-time caller here.
That was already used last time.
Was it? Dang it. Hey, I'm a big fan of yours, Tom. Long-time fan of yours, and congratulations on the Hall of Fame and
Thanks,
being the 2010 co-head official of the year as well.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That's
Good
right.
job.
You got the trophy, though. That's cool.
Yes, I did. So I have a.
You said co-head official of the year.
Co-head
Who
official
was
of the
the
year.
other?
I got the trophy. So yeah, that's how that
Yeah.
worked out.
Yeah, it was a tie, but he got the trophy. So it was kind of like 60-40 or something.
I made
a
a big call in the final open doubles final as well.
For those of you who don't know, this is the ProMaster player and an outstanding official in his own right, Mr. Brandon Moreland. Welcome to the show, Brandon. And I think you have a question for Tom.
Yeah, I do. This should be a softball for you. So, is it true that you won't change the most broken rule in foosball, which is the obsessive use of the wall in the 2-to-5 passing, because your son is a practitioner of the series?
The 2-to-5. So multiple walls on the 2-to-5. So you're an advocate of harmonizing the 5-bar passing rule with the 2-bar passing rule.
Yes.
And we've had that question many times, actually, and that is one of our rule change proposals to make, because in reality, I mean, on one hand, it's a lot easier to make the 2-to-5 pass with multiple wall bounces, where it's illegal on the 5-bar. The same motion is illegal on the 5-bar, and many people don't realize why that's even illegal in the first place, why you can't have multiple wall bounces, but. We're discussing it. That's something that we are discussing, but there's more of a risk there too. So you have to talk about the risk reward. On the 5-bar you have two men close together, so it's easier to tap off the wall and then hit a second guy and you keep working it. It's a little different variation there, but against the wall on the 2-bar to the 5, you got one guy bouncing it off the wall. You do cover more area, but there's a risk to it, because if the ball gets stolen, it's on their scoring rod. So, just because some guys are really good at it doesn't mean it shouldn't be allowed, but it's something we are looking at.
That's kind of. Go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say, when you're defending that 2-to-5 series with your 3-rod, that one man on the near side has to cover about 6 inches of width. So giving the 2-rod even more of an advantage doesn't seem fair, and I kind of agree with Brandon on this one. And one other point I wanted to make.
I would add to that too. Sorry, I would add to that too, which is the wall pass doesn't really have much disadvantage because it continuously goes back off goal as well after block.
Yes, that's true too. And also on the 5-row, the rule for the P for P tour in Germany is that you can hit that ball off the wall as many times as you want to. You just can't pass it with that same man. In other words, you could bounce it 5, 6, 8 times with that near man. You just can't pass it with that same man. It has to hit another man before you advance it. Which is not a bad rule, Tom Yore.
I didn't understand that to be the case. I've actually talked to other players about the P for P rule, and I thought that the way it was explained to me anyways is that they could bounce it off the wall as many times as they want and pass with the same guy. So I need to check that out, because I may have been given bad intel on that one. I thought that there was no restriction on walls and whether you could pass with that same guy.
Okay, well, that's my understanding of it, and having worked probably 15 P for P tournaments, I believe that's the case. Either way, let's move on.
I'll defer to you on that one, but I'd have to check that rule and see what it actually says and what it is. But I wouldn't be opposed to that. I'm not opposed to that. It'll actually force some of these 2-to-5ers to learn how to shoot from the 2-bar.
Hey, Tom, I got a question about.
Chuck Dooley, go ahead.
I got a question on that. Now, when you're talking about the 2-to-5 bar and that you're quickly bouncing it off the wall, and supposedly you want the rule changed because it's unstoppable, but is it unstoppable, or is it the two people that are doing it that are unstoppable? I mean, I know I could never do it. I'm not a top pro, but I could never learn that pass and have it be unstoppable.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair question, and that's kind of why we talk about why are there rule changes. That question was asked, by Tom. Back in the day, they allowed stop ball passes, and once it became just so boring and easy for someone with, on the 5 to the, passing 5 to the 3 to have a stop ball and be able to just pass down the wall or to a lane, it became really boring and just, it was high percentage. And then they did the same thing on the 5 bar, bounce, 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 multiple times and either go wall or lane. So the rules have evolved to prohibit these boring and high percentage options. So this is kind of where things seem to be going now, where maybe some players are wanting to see something not as high percentage. But I don't know. I mean, you've got Tony, Tommy, and Frederica, who doesn't play anymore, and other than that, who else is doing 2 to the 5s as effectively as pretty much 2 players on tour right now. Brandon, you still there? I mean,
yes, I'm still here. You're a rock, man. You're a rock.
I think I appreciate that. What was your other point on that?
So I would say it should be a uniform rule in regards to what I'm suggesting as a change, to making it to where they can't do that on the 2 to the 5, but also to take away the kind of obscure rule, which is the only use of 2 walls on the 5 bar. Like when you're trying to get it off the wall on the 5 bar, everybody looks up and says, "Hey, was that 1 or 2?" And it just leaves the things open to interpretation. Whereas to me, it seems like the rule should be is if you're going to pass forward, then you shouldn't be able to strike it with the same player figure after you've used 2 walls. So take away the rule on the 5 as well, and make it to where, you can use as many walls as you want. However, if once you touch 2 walls, you're not allowed to strike it with the same player figure anymore.
That's actually, that's actually in our rule change proposal for that specific rule is once it hits the wall a second time, you can hit it 5 times with the same guy or whatever, but once it hits the wall a second time, you have to touch another figure before you can advance the ball. So that's actually one of our rule change proposals that we're likely to see in the start of the 2021 season.
All right, Brandon.
Well, can we call that one the Moreland rule as well?
No, you get the one. That's it. I mean, unless you.
All right, thanks for joining in, Brandon. Good stuff, and feel free to call back next week as well. Love to.
Awesome. Can I throw in that we have a Foos watching party on Sunday at 8:30. If you would like, you can contact the great Ellen Moon on Facebook in regards to getting an invite to that. And Joe Hamilton will be hosting this week.
Ah,
so.
Wow.
Give him my regards.
Yeah, Joe.
Yes,
What exactly is going on there, Brandon?
We watched Foosball in a Zoom and just basically kind of drink and have fun and talk crap about the good foosball play and then the bad foosball play and things like that. So just
send me a link. I downloaded Zoom. I guess I should have bought stock in that thing, but
We all should. Yes.
And Tom, if you're open to it as well, I also do foosball lessons. I mean, I got a couple of slots open next week if you really need something.
Let me know when you're doing a 5 bar lesson. I'd like to.
Perfect.
See what's going on.
Hey, Brandon, he can't even beat his son. He can't even beat his son.
I know,
but he can join him.
Yep.
I did.
Thanks, Brandon.
Yeah. See you later.
Take care, Brandon. Thanks for joining us on FoosTalk Live. So if anybody else wants to jump in, there is a slot open to talk to Tom Yore tonight about the rules of foosball. It is FoosTalk Live. I just do want to mention that we also have another sponsor that we want to mention on this live broadcast. They're called ProtectoFlex. And Jim, do you want to tell us more about ProtectoFlex?
Sure. This segment is brought to you by ProtectoFlex Foosball Safety System. Our good friend Spirit Molise down in the Dallas-Fort Worth area produces a product that really makes your foosball table safe. I've got an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old here at home, and there's no way I would have the table in the house, and it is right smack dab in the middle of the living room, without ProtectoFlex. Foosball rods can be dangerous weapons, as we all know, and especially with kids whose heads are at about that level. So you can go to protecto-flex.com to get your ProtectoFlex set. I highly recommend it, and again, I wouldn't have the table in the house without it. So talk to our good friend down there at Spirit Molise down in Texas, and tell him that Jim Stevens sent you, and he'll work out a good deal for you.
Excellent. Thank you so
Hey, I
much.
have
and
one other
thanks
thing.
for checking for
I have
us.
one other
Yes.
thing for us, Tom. I do have a. 'Cause I want to encourage people to call. Of course, call so that you can get answers to your questions about the rules. But also, we want to give you a chance to win a set of Inside Foods videos. If you can answer this trivia question about Tom Yore.
I
Ooh.
know, I know, I know.
I guarantee you do know. I wonder if your son knows. But what tournament? What was Tom Yore's first ever big major final? In what event? And I'm talking about it has to be pro or above. In a major championship event, what was the first final he reached? I need the year and I need the event, and you got to call in to win. And if then you get a set of World Championship videos. So give us a call, and of course, also you get to ask Tom Yore about anything, about any rules. Tom, I've got a quick question for you.
All right.
You've been part of, and it looks like we have a caller coming, so I'll make it quick. But you've been a part of the 10 World Cup teams as a player. You've also officiated some of the biggest matches in the history of the sport internationally and here in this country. A couple of things that maybe stand out, a couple of incidents or rulings or weird situations that occurred while you were officiating during the course of your long and illustrious career.
Oh boy, I got a few doozies. A couple of them involve Jamal from Europe, from Belgium / Germany /
Alaloo, yeah.
Alaloo.
Turkey. Morocco.
One of my first encounters with Jamal was in the U.S. I believe he was playing against Swan and Biney, and they got into an altercation at the table and got a little heated. I was called to ref, and Jamal he was kind of the European Johnny Horton, and he would just push the rules to the limit, to the edge. I mean, he would just get toe up to the edge and then just get right there and then back off. Well, that was the first time that I reffed his match, and he realized that I didn't give him a chance to back off, because when he pushed me to the edge, I forfeited him. So he wound up spitting on the table. So once he did that, it was, you're done. Go sign the match card. It's over. So then fast forward several years, I'm reffing at I want to say it was a Bonzini Worlds in France, and he was doing his thing. He was, I love Jamal. He's actually a buddy of mine. I have a lot of respect for him. He's a great player. So he just sometimes loses his cool at the table, but he's really off the table a great guy, just to say. But on the table, it's a battle for him. So he was in a battle with somebody, and I don't remember who, but he was losing, and he was doing everything he could to drag the other team down. And I just remember this moment where he was so mad at probably a call I made or whatever was going on, more mad that he was losing. And I put him on warning for delay game. I put him on double warning for delay game. I'm about to forfeit him. And at the last moment, he's like, no, I'll play. As he's throwing his handles onto the table like he's quitting, I'm like, all right, go. I told the other team, all right, go sign it. No, I'll play. And he's been on his best behavior for the most part. But I'll stick with him for one more time. This is actually a really funny story. He was playing Federico. This is at an ITSF World Cup, like a semifinal in the winners bracket in singles, men, World Championship, and Fred's just killing him. But Jamal's doing everything he could to get me to make a call to give him something to be upset about, aside from the fact that Fred was just shellacking him on the table. So he's just jarring the crap out of the table. He's doing everything he can. I'm not calling anything. Fred's just, he's so good. Fred's catching every pass and just scoring every time he got it. And Jamal's just getting madder and madder. He's trying to jar to get a call, but I'm not giving him the call because Fred keeps catching the ball. So it's just the funniest thing. Finally, Fred turns and looks. He's almost in tears. He's like, he's jarring me. I'm like, yeah, I know. I'll call it when you lose the ball. Fred 3 straight. So it was the funniest thing ever. Anyway, I had fun with that.
Is he like the John McEnroe of foosball? Is that the deal?
He's a good player. He's actually really talented, but when he's overmatched by somebody, he tries to divert and try to play a head game and do things off the he tries to get under his opponent's skin and try to change it to him versus the ref rather than him versus the opponent. But those are a couple moments that stand out.
Yeah,
that
Jamal
make me
Alalou,
laugh.
in my opinion, I think Jamal Alalou is probably one of the 5 most talented players to ever play
Absolutely.
the game.
Multi-table,
Yeah,
absolutely.
he's one of those guys
Absolutely.
like Billy Pappas who can play every table and can do amazing things on the table. I also have another story, a brief one here before it looks like we have a caller. But it was Jamal Alalou at the Tornado World Championships got so upset during the course of a match that he literally banged his head on the table. He just looked down and
Ouch.
banged his head as hard as he could on the table and started bleeding all over his forehead and had a big bruise
Oh,
there.
Yeah. It's not
But
round like a Bonzini. This is a sharp edge. He's probably done that a few times on the Bonzini. It's got a little soft padded turnbuckle or
seriously.
something out of it.
and then
Wow.
they X-rayed his head and they didn't find anything. But
In his head.
anyway, it looks like we have a caller, Tom.
Yes,
Hey, yeah.
we'd like to
Can you all
welcome
hear me?
Stephen to FoosTalk Live. Stephen, welcome to the conversation here.
Thank you. Yeah, I happy to be here. I've got a couple real questions for Tom if you're up for it.
First of all, for
Sure.
you, we got a question. Where are you calling from? First of all,
Calling from Chicago.
and your scene in Chicago. Do you play your regular DYP?
Yeah. You know, we Don Chalifo runs a tournament out in the suburbs, and
Yes.
then there's a city crew that plays at Emporium in Logan Square. So that's what we'd be doing if we weren't all inside right now.
Yep, absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us. What questions do you have for Tom Yore?
Yeah, so I think the rules are pretty clear about like not flexing the rod to reach an unreachable ball. But
Right.
I've seen it come up before where people crush the bumper to do it, and I've seen it called both ways, and I've never been clear on like if that is a legal move to crush the bumper to reach a ball that's like it's far out and it's close to the wall, so you can get to it if you compress the bumper.
Yeah, I've been asked that question a number of times, and I really cannot, in the rules, in the previous set of rules and the new standard match play rules that we've come up with, there's nothing that I can see that prohibits squeezing the bumper to contain the ball or to get the ball. The standard is whether the ball is reachable or not without bending the rod. That's kind of the deciding factor. So squeezing the bumper to get the ball is not prohibited. So I would say it's okay to do so. Unless somebody, a tournament director, specifies otherwise. But as far as the rules are concerned, it would be permitted, as long as the ball is already within reach of the rod or the player figure.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you. And then the other one I was wondering was if there's any situation where a back pin rollover is legal. Typically you have to toss the ball a little bit forward to get it out of the back pin and actually hit it, and that makes it go more than 360. But like on a Bonzini, that toss is so tiny it's almost imperceptible. And so it's like where is the point where it becomes a spin in terms of shots that people might actually try to do, I guess.
And that's actually a really good point you're making. I don't think that where the man pins the ball on top of the ball and has to pull it slightly forward to advance the ball, there's still a little bit of ball left before it actually becomes a full 360. It's very difficult for a ref to perceive that. And then there was terminology in the rules from before 2005 that kind of got lost, and it was the term something to the effect of before the beginning or initiation of a pass or a shot or something like that. So now we have to, this is something actually I've got in my notes on rule change proposals and fixes, is when is the initiation of a shot or a pass? When does it begin? Is it when it's pinned at that moment, or once the man releases from the ball in a pin situation, you roll it down, and then once it releases from there, do you start the 360 at that moment, or where it begins or where the last contact of the man to the ball? So that's something we have to look at. I'd say in most cases, it's probably legal to to shoot the back pin snake shot or what, I've seen the shot. It's not a real effective shot, so I don't see somebody you're really
Tough to hit
complaining
it
too
straight.
much about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't go
Tough to hit it
straight.
straight. And you got to have that straight. And you know who's really good at it actually is Tommy Atkinson. Of course, Tommy's good at a lot of things, but I watched him shoot a back pin snake series, which we're going to have to come up with a different name for if anyone really does intend to use it. But he's really good at it. But again, you can't hit that direct, quick, straight, and that's sort of a disadvantage.
It's limiting. Yeah, it's a limited shot, but if people try it, and opponents usually try to look at it and say, "Oh, that's an illegal spin," and that just hasn't been determined because it's not always an illegal spin. So it's something that has to be called by a referee at the table to decide. Because if they go 1/4 over, they might be able to catch it and hit it before it goes more than 360. But to go to the corner, pull it deep or push it deep, might require the ball to go farther forward, and then maybe it might be. So it's just something that it can or cannot be depending on what a ref might think about it. It's not an automatic where a back pin is automatically a illegal spin. It's not that easy. It's got to be seen and judged by a ref.
Brandon in the chat. Brandon in the chat says he would call that series an Oklahoma over.
Mm-hmm. I like it. We'll go with that.
That's all I've got for you. Thank you so much.
Hey, real quick, Stephen, before you go, we do have a trivia question. Tom Yore's first ever big major open final, the year and the event. Do you have any idea?
Gosh, I really am not sure. I have no idea. I'll just. Oh, sure, yeah.
I wasn't a pro at the time.
Okay. It's definitely before my time. I'll say 1990.
Yeah, we may go with the year, but I don't think that year is correct. You're not far off, but that's not the correct year. But thanks for joining us and very, very good questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen.
All right, thank you.
And you are listening to FoosTalk Live. FoosTalk Live, of course, coming to you from a basement in upstate New York and Colorado, just steps from with Jim Stevens and Tom Robinson and Chuck Dooley of Foosball Radio. So, guys, first of all, thank you for tuning in and listening to this conversation, fascinating conversation we're having with Tom Yore, one of the persons responsible for writing the rule book of foosball. And Jim would like to continue. Would you have another question you'd like to ask?
You were breaking up a little on me. I'm going to assume you were talking to me. I do have something else, and it's a couple of things. Number one, Tom, whatever motivated you to want to become an official? It takes sort of a certain kind of a person, a certain kind of a player to also want to officiate. For me, it was always, I never wanted to officiate because I thought it took away from my approach to the game, my playing. But what was it that really turned you into an official?
I think it started locally where, I don't know, I started getting asked to ref, and I just kind of was a personality where I just wanted to help. And so then after I was asked to ref, I figured, okay, I better learn the rules. So I went and started studying the rules, and then I got intrigued, and then I started, bouncing, then I started using it to my advantage, I guess, by trying to learn loopholes and trying to figure out things that, can benefit me in a match. But at the end of the day, it's basically, somebody asked me to ref. I started reffing. I didn't know all the rules, so I wanted to become more educated. So I started studying the rules more and basically, learned the rules and became a better ref. I mean, we had down here in Tampa, Florida, Carl Miller was the head official when I started playing, or one of them. He was one of the head officials. So he was one that I bounced a lot of questions off of and talked about rules and different things, and he kind of gave me a little education on the history of the rules and why certain rules came to be, and a lot of my reffing style actually comes from me watching Carl Miller ref went back in the late 80s and early 90s before he retired. But that was kind of what got me into it. Is locally I was asked to ref, because I don't know, like if it's the same elsewhere, but back in the day in Florida, there were a lot of refs needed constantly.
Yes. There are certain regions of the country. I know Houston, Texas was one of them. Tampa, Florida area was another one of them where you needed refs. It was as
But I
simple
will
as that.
say, I mean,
Even
just
oftentimes a ref wasn't enough.
I
think
will
that was
say,
everywhere, Jim.
I'd like to say though, I think, and I'm going to pat myself on the back, give myself a little credit here. I started running tournaments here locally, at least in the Tampa area, and I didn't want to see players yelling, screaming, arguing, calling for refs. So when I was running tournaments for about a 2+ year period of time, anytime there was an outbreak where guys just started getting into it, no matter where I was, if I was in a match, didn't matter. I went and got involved really quickly, and I said, no, we're not going to do that. And I just asked what happened here, what happened there, made a ruling, and then said, all right, play. And I did that pretty darn consistently. It's like training a dog. It's like dog's peeing on the rug. It's like, no, smack the dog and put it outside, and the dog learns, okay, I got to go outside. Okay, fine.
Foosers. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. So I was pretty darn consistent, and I'll tell you, we hardly ever anymore have arguments at the table. Everybody resolves it at the table before anything escalates. We hardly have any arguments until the Orlando guys come over. Then all of a sudden, they haven't learned.
All right. Hey,
But
by the way, it
anyways,
looks like the aforementioned Mr. Dave Zeman has joined and is listening in. Nice to hear.
Dave,
see
my
your
buddy.
name listed there. Dave's a great guy. As Tom mentioned, a great foosball man, very smart guy out of England. And it looks like, Tom, we might have a caller.
All right.
Matt, welcome to FoosTalk Live once again. I have a question for Tom.
Hey guys, yeah, it's actually about what you're talking about right now, which is refereeing at tournaments and even refereeing at local tournaments. How do we get more refs? Is there a plan in place for, if you go to these tournaments, it's tough to get refs. And I think it's good for players to have the skill to ref and take that back to their local player base. And I just think there are a lot of reasons to get 2-3 times as many referees as we already have. So that's one question. Another question I had is there a difference between the set of referees that we have in IFP? Is there a different test from IFP or ITSF? And that's about it. Except for the local reffing. I talked to Mary about this not too long ago because I wanted to start refereeing local matches for practice for myself, for my local players to get used to referees so that they get used to the rules and everything like that. She said you shouldn't be refereeing your own tournament. And I never thought of it in that way. I could see how refereeing your own tournament, if it's on a large scale, like a state tournament, like if she refs a tournament, how that could be a conflict of interest, but maybe locally, not so much. How do you look at that? So I guess a 3-part question.
All right, yeah, I'll answer the last one first. On a local basis, yeah, absolutely. You want to manage your own tournament. If you can appoint somebody and have them do it, fine, because you're busy running the tournament, so it's going to bog you down. From a promoter standpoint, if you're reffing a match, and there's matches that have finished, and now everything's waiting on you, that becomes a problem. So, I guess it'd be ideal to have somebody else handle that. But if you're the last resort, then by all means, you got to do what you got to do to keep the peace. But yeah, it does take you away from actually running the tournament. But if you've got somebody backing you up that can keep the chart going, then yeah, it's not so bad. If you're running bigger tournaments, you definitely want to delegate that to somebody else. As far as training of referees, ITSF has their own system and their own trainers basically. So there may not always be crossover where IFP or ITSF referees are running clinics, so to speak, at IFP events. I don't think that there's a whole lot of crossover as far as that's concerned. I know that IFP runs their own clinics with a slight variation to what the ITSF is doing. So that's something that ITSF has wanted to do is run regional clinics, outside of tournaments, because one of the biggest problems at tournaments, and I've done many clinics at tournaments, is you just can't do it. There's almost no time to budget for a hour and a half or 2 hour clinics. Usually, at least 2 hours. Once you get into the question and answer period, it can never end. And then, on top of that, we have the practicals where not only, you might have 10 or 15 people pass the test, and now you've got to evaluate their ability at the table. So now you've got to go play a 15 or 20-minute pickup game and have, one of the guys who passed the test, officiate basically you breaking the rules on purpose, so they can, you can see if they pick up what you're doing. There's just not enough time to do that. So, one of the things we've been looking at with ITSF is running clinics regionally where, those who are interested in becoming a ref with ITSF and therefore being able to officiate at any, ITSF sanctioned tournaments, then you go to that clinic and get educated by, the professionals and doing it the ITSF way. I know that IFP has, clinics that I think are normally run by Arthur Mitchell these days, and they fit it in when they can, and they kind of do most of what, the ITSF way was, but I haven't been to any in a while, so I'm not sure exactly what's going on there. But anyhow, that's kind of my answer on that. Is there's not a pure ITSF system yet that's actually training refs, unless it's at the normally at the World Cup or some of the World Championship Series tournaments. They actually do have officials clinics that are based on the ITSF model.
Right.
And one thing that
thanks.
a lot of people, thanks, Matt, and thanks for your call, thanks for your questions, and nice to hear from you up there in Western New York.
Can I answer the trivia question? I was going to say
go ahead.
94 U.S. Open doubles.
No, that was Chris Dooley and Merv Schrock.
Okay.
Won that year, but good guess. You're still in the ballpark, and I think the two guesses so far have sort of bookended the year, haven't they, Tom?
Sort of.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize, or maybe they do having watched World Cup coverage, is every elimination match at a World Cup or a World Championship event has an official, don't they?
Yeah, they always have. And in the finals area, there's always an official present. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the players say, we don't need a ref. So the ref will just stand in the wings and be there if needed. But there's always, normally there's about 4 tables or so, 4 sections, 3 or 4 sections in the finals area. And there's always refs available in those areas if needed. Most of the finals, the big matches that are broadcast and recorded, yes, they do put refs there. But there's matches in the finals areas that don't always have refs, but they're always there if they need them, for sure.
Please give us a call here at FoosTalk Live on a Friday night, approaching about 7:30, about 7:15 almost here in the Rocky Mountains, and 9:15 on the East Coast where Tom and Tom are. Tom, while we wait for another caller, and of course we encourage everyone to call with their questions, I want to take you back to 2007. We are in St. Vincent, Italy. You are reffing a match between a French team, and I believe it was an American team. And the French team ended up losing the match and was not real happy about it, were they?
The French team lost. Is that because of a little influx of a foreign substance? Am I thinking of the wrong situation?
No, yeah, you made a call, and apparently one of the players, and we will not name him, did not appreciate that call. And after the match, it was in the pit area on table 2, I believe. I'm sitting up there commentating, and I see this match, or I might have just commentated the match. I see it end. There's a few minutes that have gone by, and suddenly I look across the room, and this Frenchman is charging across the ballroom straight at Tom Yore.
All right. So, yes, that was a French team versus an Austrian team, and it was Laszlo Tiki and Wolfgang Resler, and they knew. Wolfgang was the head ref with the Austrian Federation, and Laszlo was one of their head refs. So these guys knew the rules. Remember I mentioned earlier about knowing the rules so you know how to use them as a strategy. So at that time, based on the new ITSF rules, the French were a little slow on catching up. They had their own rule set, so they had to learn new rules. And they were accustomed, the French on Bonzini and the new Bonzini ball, brand new Bonzini ball was super slick. And it was very difficult to pin and to tap it, back and forth. So they wanted to play with a very old ball, really old ball. And the forward, what was the guy's name? Koulibaly. Jim, you probably know his name. The black guy, Koulibaly.
Mm-hmm.
I forget his first name. But the first time I went to France, I drew him in the draw. We actually did very well, and
All that.
yeah, he was actually a really cool guy. But anyways, he was playing with this other French player he was kind of ill-tempered. But the guy shot on the 3-bar with his left hand. That was one of his main shots, was shooting on the 3-bar with his left hand. And during the match, before I was called to ref, he wanted to use a ball that was like 3 years old. And it was pretty chewed up, and it was like a little crater.
But you could pin it.
It was really easy for him to pin it and shoot, but Wolfgang said, no. The rules allow us, the new rules allow us to start the match with a brand new ball, which was super slick. It wasn't broken in. It wasn't the way he's used to shooting it. The French guy was used to shooting it. So they came and got me as the president at that time of the Rules Commission and head official of the tournament. So they came and got me to ref, and so now they're like, okay, he's wanting to use this ball. And I'm like, well, the rule is that I'm strictly going by the rules. The rule is you have to use the new ball, because that's the standard. The new ball is the standard. You can't deny it. If somebody wants to play with a new ball, you have to use a new ball, period, unless the other team agrees. So now he's got a slick ball. So now he wants to shoot with his left hand. Well, the rules say you have to shoot, when the ball, you have to shoot with both hands on both rods, before shooting. So it's like, well, if you want to shoot with your left hand, then you have to have both hands. So I don't know how you're going to do it, but you got to have both hands on both rods. So if you want to shoot with your left hand, your right hand has to be on the 5-bar. And he doesn't speak a lick of English, so his French partner, Koulibaly, is translating, and I could just see him just steaming. He's getting mad. So then he throws the ball on the ground, steps on it, and starts rolling around on the bottom of his shoe, trying to wear it in and dirty up the ball so it's easier to control. I'm like, you can't do that. I'm just like, new ball, so he's just so mad at me right now. So then they play the match, and I'm making calls because he's just, going full Jamal on these guys, right? For those who've been listening since the beginning of this conversation. So at the end of the match, they lose. The Austrians win. And now he's just so mad. He's so mad. And he's blaming me because he couldn't shoot left-handed with one hand on the rod, and he couldn't use his old raggedy ball or the one he stepped on. And so now he just turns, and fire in his eyes, he comes charging at me. And Jim, I think you and Iceman were down there. You both kind of blocked him, and he throws a kick at me, hits me in the leg. Wasn't much. And then he gets kind of dragged off a little bit, and then Atkinson comes up. He's like, what's going on? So this guy, he's all mad because I made a call or two against him or whatever, wouldn't let him do this. And I said, hey, come over and trying to kick me and stuff. Tommy just says, where is he?
Yep, no, Tommy. You don't want to mess with Tommy Atkinson. That's the last guy.
It was the funniest thing. Yore, I got your back.
That's a good guy to have your back, that's for sure. But it was a memorable moment, certainly for me. I leaped out of the booth to jump in front of this charging Frenchman.
You did. You blocked him out. You and Iceman. That was awesome. Yeah. So he barely got a shoe on me. He kicked my thigh,
and then ended up getting a year or
he was suspended for 2 years. And actually, last time we saw France in the finals, he was part of their entourage.
With a new name, however. It did change.
Yeah, he changed his name. I don't know if that was related. I mean, some people are saying, but no, he shook my hand and gave me a nod. Everything's cool. So he didn't try to put me in a chokehold or anything. Everything's cool.
Iceman and I would not have let him. We'd love to hear from you guys if you have any more questions for Tom Yore tonight. And Tom, I do want to touch a little bit on your playing career. And of course, inducted this year, waiting to be inducted, I suppose, but officially a 2020 Hall of Fame member and inductee.
So it's official?
And congratulations on that. And
congratulations.
Thanks, guys.
Talk about your playing career a little bit. You and Robert Mars, the only two guys who have been a member of every single World Cup team going back to 2006. You've won 6 gold medals plus a World Multi-Table Doubles Championship with our earlier caller, Brandon Moreland, by the way, back in
Darn
2011.
right. Couldn't have done it
And
without
so,
him. Actually,
let's talk a little.
he was my off-table specialist for
Yeah.
sure. I
Yeah, you
literally
made
played
some.
goalie on the off table, and I
Right.
played forward on the Tornado.
Right.
It's pretty
You
awesome.
guys ended up winning. Who'd you beat in the final?
Rob Atha
Robert Atha.
from
That's
England,
right.
the
Yeah,
England team.
they had defeated, or one of you had eliminated Collignon, I think, in the
We
semis.
we got Collignon in the semifinal. Yeah.
But you've also been a member of 6 World Cup winning teams. Talk a little bit about what it's like to be part of a team and a successful team, and now a legendary team. Your experiences each and every year playing for Team USA.
Wow, it's been great. We've had some awesome wins and a couple heartbreaking losses. You mentioned it before. Our biggest loss was one of our best experiences.
Yeah.
2006 in Hamburg at the Fish Auction Hall,
Mm-hmm.
which is pretty awesome. But yeah, I mean that was a bad loss, but it was the most exciting foosball ever. Although I guess our first win was what 2009. That was pretty darn cool. Am I right on that, Jim? I said 2009. I tend to get dates wrong.
2009. You guys,
Yeah.
yeah, no, that was the first one. Yep, that was the one that you kind of came back. You got France in the semis, and then won, I
Yeah.
think, over the Netherlands in the final. And that was the first World Cup win for Team USA. And then they've gone on to win 6 of the next 9, which is pretty impressive. No other country has won more than 1, and the US
Yeah.
has 6 of them. How about that?
And they've kept trying to change the rules to keep us from winning, but somehow we figure it out and we get there. So yeah, it's been awesome. I've been really blessed and very proud to be part of all these teams. We'll see what happens next time. I may or may not be there, but it's been a tremendous honor to be part of Team USA all these years with Rob Mars and the rest of the crew. So it's the pinnacle of my foosball career has been able to represent our country and go over there and play for Team USA. It's like nothing else that could be described in foosball, really, in my opinion. I mean, I've done well here in the States, but playing internationally on all the tables and being in that moment with the thousands of people going into Nantes, France, with all the thousands of people in the stands, cheering. I mean, we've had French citizens cheering for Team USA. It's been crazy. It's been really crazy, but it's an awesome experience, and there's really nothing like it. I will say I've been honored to be a part of the team and to be voted into the Hall of Fame. I mean the Hall of Fame is Hall of Famers voting for future Hall of Famers. So much appreciated on that. I really do. I feel honored to be a part of that.
Yeah, and we hope to see on the next team as well. Although it has become really tough to get on that team. However, how can you not have a guy on the team? How can you not pretty much field the same team when you're as successful as you have been? And the United States, of course, has been highly
there's up and
successful.
comers. I mean,
You live with one.
Yeah, Brandon, I voted. I'm on the committee to vote, and I put Brandon on the team last year. It didn't happen, but he should have been on the team. I actually had Tommy on the team in my vote, I'll say. My son Tommy, I mean, he's actually really good multi-table. He's been on 2 or 3 of the junior World Cup teams, and he's actually quite skilled on Leonhardt, Bonzini, Garlando. I mean, he can play on all the tables, and very well. He's actually one of our better multi-table players, and yeah, he probably should have been on the team or could have been on the team last year, or was it 2019? Yeah, last year. So yeah, I mean, and there's others. So yeah, either way, no matter how it shakes out, we're going to have a really solid team for the next World Cup. There's no question about it.
Yeah, well, and into our last segment here, and if you would like to call in, you got one last chance here to call in and talk with the man who wrote the modern rule book, and along with Dave Zeman, kind of took it one step farther and wrote the truly modern rule book now. The match play rule book that you talked about earlier and the changes that have been made there. Any other potential rule changes that you see coming in the next year or two?
There are some possibilities, some potential, maybe harmonizing. We talked about harmonizing the 5-bar wall passing rule and the 2-bar, perhaps, harmonizing the time limits for all rods, making it the same for all rods. It gets confusing for people who are just learning the game to, why do you have this much time here but not there, or why can you do this here but not there? So, we want to see a little more consistency. There's been a push, bringing in beginner players in, bar players, just, for ITSF wanting to represent all factions of player, whether you're in a college or, just a foosball group working for a corporation that competes against other corporations in a similar industry or something like that. ITSF's goal and kind of their mandate from the International Olympic Committee is to represent foosball globally. So in order to do so, we have to figure out how to create rule sets that apply to every faction. So if a couple guys show up at a bar to just go play some foosball, non-tournament style, that there's a set of rules that they all understand. And, for me, I'd like to see a tournament rule set and a leisure, friendly rule set, with a little more relaxed rules, So these are things that we're looking at. But as far as our tournament rule set, I'd say there's not a whole lot that we want to make changes to. We'd probably want to clean up some of the deficiencies, because the idea from, the current standard match play rules was kind of divided into two different rule books. One for actual gameplay, what's going on the table while the match is active. And then there's the other rule book that we created that applies to off the table rules, with medical timeouts or, things that are, dress code related and things like that. It's a separate book that's taken out before, before it was all jumbled into one. But, we had the match play rules that only apply to what's happening during a match. So that, there's a separate book. And then we have another one that's for tournament administration for, basically for the tournament directors, what they have, their responsibilities are in terms of running tournaments. So we have that going on, so there's a lot, that we're working on, and hopefully we can, resume, work on that after this whole situation's over, and have something fresh starting in 2001.
Yeah, no, and I think there's
2021. I just lost a few years.
That's okay. It happens to all of us. Losing years it's not a bad thing. It's those gaining of years that's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
And where can people go to access the actual rules themselves? Where can they download them? Is there any sort of a condensed version of the rules that could hang above a foosball table, for example, or where would they find the rules to start with?
Well, tablesoccer.org is where the official rules are. You can get the current rules, and then as I was kind of getting to the standard match play rules are based off of the previous version of the ITSF rules, I guess the 2019 or maybe 2016 rules, but nothing should have changed. That was the thing, is when we put out the new rule book, we didn't want to implement any rule changes into the new rule book. So this is one thing that we've stressed. If there's any perceived rule changes from the previous rule book to the new rule book, we would like to know about it, because they were unintentional. We didn't intend to have any actual rule changes into this new rule book. So if anyone sees anything that looks like a rule change, let us know so we can fix it. And then we'll start working on actual rule changes here in the future.
All right.
But
well,
you go to tablesoccer.org.
Yeah, tablesoccer.org. That's correct. That's the ITSF website. Lots of good stuff there as well. Ratings and results and everything else there. Go check that out. Tablesoccer.org. So what's a day look like for you these days? A little bit of foosball, and are you actually getting out of the house at all down there in Tampa?
So I'm in medical equipment sales and service, and in Florida, and most of my accounts are surgery centers, ambulatory surgery centers, which is elective surgery predominantly, which all elective surgery has been shut down. So everything that I've had in the pipeline is getting close to pretty much running out. Checks have been coming in from, jobs and service calls and things I've sold in the past. They're still coming in, but, I'm gonna have to, once we restart, I'm gonna have to, build up that pipeline again, to start getting paid. But last year was a really good year, so I'm not doing too bad. So everything's cool as far as that's concerned. I still have a few projects I'm working on that are going to take a little time, so no big deal there. My days are, right. Actually, I'm cleaning up my accounting software. I've had some really bad deficiencies since I'm not an accountant, and I do most of that myself anyways. But I've been working on fixing some deficiencies in my accounting software, which is great. I'm actually fixing my books, making my my general ledger work and come out the same as the bank. So that's kind of what I've been working on, and playing a bit of foosball. We get together with a few guys here a few times a week. I'll let out a little secret. We got Billy Pappas down here in Florida, and able to get over there and play where he's at, and just kind of hang out a little bit, a small group, and play a little foosball, once or twice a week.
Tom.
I know. I just don't tell anybody.
All right, one last question before we go. Tom, you're a pretty good goalie. You shoot well back there. You're smart defensively. Have you thought about perhaps grabbing that son of yours and sticking him up there in the forward position, playing goalie for him? Now it's not always easy to play with a son in this case, or with your wife. Although I really play well. We play well together, my wife and I, who is listening. And so have you thought about that? Have you thought about teaming up with your son, the phenom Tommy Yore, to play in tournaments?
I can't even bribe him to play with me. That's, you say I'm a good goalie. I'm okay, but I think I've offered him money. He just doesn't like the way I play. I mean, he's got better options. Let's just say that.
Shelter and home cooked meals don't do it for him, huh?
I guess I could leverage, something, but his college education or whatever. But I'm not the type of goalie that I'm serviceable. I mean, I can do okay, but I'm forward-minded, really. I mean, I can do okay as a goalie, but I'm still learning. I'm a work in process as a goalie, as far as that's concerned.
Now, is there any platform that players can contact you to ask rules questions? I know you're not a Facebook user. But is there some way that players can communicate with you to ask about specific things or general things about the rules themselves to get better clarity, or to figure out a way to just get more officials? Because that continues to be a problem throughout the United States, at least, is having enough officials at major tournaments, at local tournaments, etc. But is there a way for players to interact with you, especially these days, and maybe get some answers to questions, or talk rules with you?
Well, yeah, I mean, the rule book itself has a link to to our email account that if they have any question whatsoever, they can just click on the link from the actual rule book. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the medium that gets to me quite all the time is someone clicks on that link and sends me an email. It's filtered through ITSF, but it gets to me anyways. But so if anyone has any rule questions, just go to the rule book. There's a link in the rule book that, or actually on the ITSF website, to get to the rules, and they forward any question, and I get a bunch. They forward all the questions for rules or whatever, other questions, refereeing questions, and I get kind of the whole gamut. But yeah, there's a link there. Honestly, I can't tell you what it is at the moment, but it's on the.
But it's at tablesoccer.org rule book.
And just the rules section, and there's a link for the email address to send questions to the Rules Commission.
Well, Tom Yore, Hall of Fame player, Hall of Fame referee, a legendary referee, a great friend of mine. Tom and I have literally traveled the world together through foosball. How many times, Tom, have we stood somewhere and said, can you believe foosball brought us here? Whether it's Taiwan, whether it's Paris, whether it's Germany, Austria, wherever we have been together. Throughout the years, France, Italy. It's really been amazing, the places that foosball has taken us throughout these years, and it continues to take us as years go by. And I don't think we ever really stop appreciating what the sport has done for us and what we can continue to hopefully do for the sport as well.
So true, so true. I mean, you and I have shared many adventures driving from Frankfurt to Vienna. just been up and down the Rhine River and on the Danube and here and there and everywhere pretty much. I mean, we've done it all. Yeah, it's been a great experience. I mean, who would have thought that just, playing foosball and being a whole, part of this whole experience would take us, so many places around the country and around the world. It's for me, it's been, a tremendous blessing. I'm thrilled and I'm not done. I mean, we're gonna keep doing this, well into the future. So everything's growing and the opportunities there. And at one point, I'll be a senior player, and who knows what that'll do. But I'm still focused on trying to do the best I can where I can as a pro master player.
Well, very nice. Tom Yore, thanks again for joining us and being a part of FoosTalk Live. It's been a great hour of discussion with Tom Yore. And appreciate it, Tom, and we'll certainly see you down the road, hopefully sooner than later.
Sounds good. Hey, guys, appreciate it. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Jim,
Tom.
Chuck. Good talking to you guys. Y'all take care. All
And
right, bye now.
you've been listening to FoosTalk Live, and we'll be back again next Friday for another edition of taking your phone calls and talking foosball. There's no doubt about it. We're looking forward to it. And in the meantime, we hope that you stay safe and certainly stay healthy. FoosTalk Live will return once again next week at this time. And hopefully you can join us once again and provide us with your phone calls. Thanks to Chuck Dooley, also Jim Stevens, and myself, Tom Robinson. Have a great night, and thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, Tom.
Good
And
night,
go
Tom.
subscribe to Inside FoosTV and go check out the complete collection on sale now at InsideFoos.com. Thanks again, Tom. Thanks, Chuck. And thanks to everybody listening out there in the world of foosball. We'll see you foosing.